Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call.
Ms. Alling is here. Ms. Valentine.
Here.
Ms. Hammond.
Here.
Mr. Jane.
Here.
Mr. Larson.
Here.
Mr. Samuel Lamb.
Here.
Mr. Schultz.
Here. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Motion is there a second?
Second.
There's a second, let's vote. Motion carries 7. Not the next. Public announcements, recognition, upcoming events.
Once the calendar turns to August, we are thinking about back to school. That starts with athletics. Our athletics activities and athletics director, Kendall Butchin, held 2 different athlete parent meetings in late July and then early August, and we've already got sports underway here in the district. I always have a hard time sending out my back to school letters on the last day of July, but I do get those out to parents and staff so that they know what our professional development is going to look like, and parents primarily because of our registration process, which again opened 2 Mondays ago, actually last Monday, and we'll go through this weekend. So far, pretty good response. Paige and our office staff have done a great job, Callie in particular, at answering questions about parents that might not be able to log in or have questions about resetting passwords and things like that. So that's gone relatively well. I was just down at the Beloit Public Library last week for a Rock County school safety meeting. And at that meeting, most of the districts in the county and then some private schools were represented. One of the things that we had agreed on is to try to have the same reunification process if there was a school incident throughout the county, so that school districts can help one another, and then the training looks similar because you're going to have county-wide resources like the sheriff's department and other local or municipality police departments helping out. So that'll be something that we'll work on this year. The next meeting's already scheduled for September. In terms of upcoming events, we do have Evansville Night Out tomorrow night, and as usual, the district will have a popcorn station, which usually Mr. Schwartz is very excited about, and Mans gets everything in his truck and brings it over. And then Paige has been instrumental this year. There will be a selfie station for our younger kids, although if they wanted one of the tattoos, we do have Blue Devil tattoos that they could have, or little blue tattoos, am I right about that one? Yeah, so those will be there tomorrow night, so the district loves to be a part of that. Remember last year we had to delay our start of our board meeting because of it. It's nice that it's on a Thursday night this time. We will have new teacher orientation, which Mr. Schwartz and our teacher mentors will lead next Thursday. Also next Thursday, it's hard to believe, but there will be a home football game here in Evansville to kind of kick things off for athletics. And then we do have our back to school breakfast and our first PD session on the 25th, which is only a week and a half now. One of the things that I wanted to ask, and I can check in with you, I don't need an answer right away, but last year Elliot was fantastic in addressing the staff on behalf of the board, just welcoming them, showing appreciation for what they do every day. And so there's about 240 people there, and Elliot gave a nice speech last year. If you're interested in that, or Elliot, you're interested in doing that again, it's a great way for the board to recognize our staff. That is Monday, the 25th, and the staff comes in at about 8:15, so it'll just be that morning for a short period of time.
That'd be interesting.
Awesome.
Nice.
I will reach out to you, Hope.
It was a little intimidating last year. It was nice to do.
And then 2 weeks out, we already have our open houses at, 2 weeks is the high school with freshman orientation. And then on the very next night, on the 28th, we'll have our K-8 open houses and then 6th grade orientation, those coming into the middle school. So a lot going on as we get prepared for the 25-26 school year.
Love that freshman orientation that is being done now. They didn't have it in the olden days. I feel like it's very, very helpful for the kids to not be intimidated by the upperclassmen. So,
All right. Any other public announcements, recognitions? If not, any public presentations? Moving on to information discussion district administrator update. Ms. Perry.
First of all, I want to recognize 2 donations. We did have an over $700 donation from Double D Builders. They had donated 2 3-wheel bikes for our special education students at Levi and Triss. I want to thank them for that. That was something that Lindsay Reese helped organize, so thank you to her as well. And then, as we've discussed many times, the Floan family donated toward the music programs at the intermediate and middle school. So we appreciate those community members giving back to the schools. In my report, I just wanted to briefly address the need for high expectations for our school district in terms of academic success, growth, and achievement. One of the things that we heard back from parents about in our surveys in the spring was challenging our academic rigor. So that was something that we'll bring to staff and talk about that not only when we get back at the end of the month, but throughout the next school year in setting goals for our students. Remember, we've talked about an 80% of students meeting grade level benchmarks in both reading and math by the end of the year. And right now, we're certainly not there. Depending on the subject area and the grade level, we're usually between the 50 and 60% range. So our principals are willing to take that on, and I know our staff will too. Some really good news out of advanced placement scores. We had a few fewer students, but taking the same number of tests as the year before. And without going into great detail, the scores are all out of 5. If you score a 3, 4, or 5 on those exams, typically you're going to, at least in in-state schools, you're going to get that same number of credits, 3, 4, or 5. That saves a lot of money. As somebody that is paying tuition in-state and out-of-state right now for 2 of my daughters, anything that they can get that reduces that really is helpful. So I want to give a shout out to our teachers because it was the highest percentage passing rate that we had going back, I think 6 years, 7 years that I can get out of the College Board. Still some areas for improvement, and the things that you see are blacked out there are really low numbers that we didn't want to provide any student identifiable, but and I know Jeff and Kim send this on to the teachers. It comes out right after the 4th of July, and they can go in and look at their scores. We've also sent staff to AP Institute. That's a really good opportunity for them in the summer to learn what their syllabus should look like, and then make connections with other teachers that teach that same subject so that if they need networking, if they need resources, they can reach out to those. That's very helpful for, especially if you've never taught the class before or you're in the first couple years of teaching it. So that's a great way to showcase our students because, of course, parents that do have their kids being college bound want to make sure that they're going to be well prepared. And that's a good measure to if they're passing those courses.
I feel like 74% qualification is fabulous. I don't ever remember that number. So.
And from what at least what I can have access to in College Board, that's the highest percentage that we've had passing. So good job to them. In terms of community engagement, again, want to thank Scott Malone at Evansville Culvers for inviting our staff over. Again, we got to recognize our year-round employees, including our youth apprentices, our summer school staff, and then our custodial staff as they previewed a little bit before they opened up a few Mondays ago. So thank you to Culvers for that. And again, we're working with them on some fundraising opportunities, especially Scoopy Nights. Also sat in on a wish list grant committee. There will be almost $8,000 this year donated from EEF back to our staff. Can't tell you who those are yet, but on the 25th, when we do have staff back, somebody from the EEF, I don't think it'll be Julie Creek-Kessler, but somebody from EEF will be there to announce those, and we're really excited about the opportunities this year in particular They funded several full projects and then several partial projects. And then as a district representative, I'm there to say, you know what, the district could pick up like shipping on something like that. So it spreads that money out a little bit more than typical. And then we do have in our new policies, the Evansville Examiner as our newspaper of record. So at least for the first time in a while, our agenda for tonight's meeting was in the legal notices. It's a pretty quick turnaround. So like on our meeting on the 27th, I've got to get them an agenda by the end of this week so that they publish it. But I think in terms of transparency and making sure that the public knows what we're working on, it's a good first step. The formatting was a little bit odd this time, but we'll keep working on that. And then just this morning, this will actually tie into something we talk about later with our Students at Risk report, but the administrative team met with our municipal judge and our chief and lieutenant of the police force here in Evansville and talked about two things, truancy and what we can do to work together on those issues, and then also some school safety issues as well. There is some support, more than some, but some support on their end to re-explore a school resource officer. We haven't broke that with the board yet, but at some point in time, if that interest continues from the city, we may bring that to the back to the board as well. That could tie into Fund 80, which Eric and I are working on setting up for the district, and you'll hear more about that in the upcoming months.
Well, just beware. That's all I have to say. It wasn't very pretty last time we approached that.
And yeah, even Chief Jones had brought that up.
Mm-hmm.
The district still uses Remind frequently with our coaches, extracurriculars, and our classroom teachers. There will be a transition after the first of the calendar year to Parent Square. It's just one company acquiring another. You're not going to see much difference in that other than you might get a reminder that this isn't Remind anymore, it's Parent Square. Parent Square does have some really nice features that are at no additional cost that we'll be able to access. And then on Monday, thanks to Janessa, she had organized threat assessment training in Middleton. I think they said that there were 90, something like that. There was a lot of, the whole Cromery Middle School cafeteria in Middleton was full of different school and police members from around the area. We had about a dozen staff members there. Not only did it open our eyes to things that we should be looking for in terms of school safety threats, but then what this also does is get us talking as a group about if we do have something reported to us, what's our systematic way that we go through a process to determine is this real and serious, or is it something that we'll investigate but then find out that it's not truly a threat. So that was very helpful and something that we'll continue on working with the student services team.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is this like, if someone like calls in a threat to the district or something like that? I'm just trying to envision.
It could be, but more typically it might be something that a student reports another student said or another student did to them, or could even be a parent reporting something that they saw or heard one of our students with.
Okay.
Last but not least, Eric and I have been working quite a bit with Bill Snow, who advises us on our roofs, and the hail damage that had happened on April 18th. It's a very large claim. Initially, we thought that claim might approach $10 million. You can imagine that the insurance company does not want to pay out $10 million. So now we are going back and forth with them, looking at our policy, getting advice from WASB and a lady there that advises on insurance plans named Joy Gonder. Have reached out also to district council about what our options may be, because what they're recommending isn't really what's best for the district long term, and we want to make sure that although this was a terrible event for the entire community, that the district gets what its policy says it should get. And so Eric and I are trying to be, for lack of a better phrase, defenders of the district and make sure that our roofs are set up and in good shape for the next 20 years.
I presume that it's a replacement cost.
Yes.
So they don't really have a leg to stand on. I mean, they have to replace how it was, not how they want it to do it on the
What are they trying to suggest?
Yeah, so in most of our roofs are less than 15 years old. And so our
Yeah.
policy does say that that should be repaired or replaced in the condition that it was. So for example, what did that roof look like on April 17th?
Yeah.
So like at the middle and high school, there is only one roof on those buildings. And so you could put a second roof on top of that. Our interpretation of the policy is different than that. Because there's damage, we don't want to put a roof on top of a damaged roof already, so that they should tear down to the deck and build up again.
Gotcha.
At this building, there's not as much controversy because there's multiple roofs, and by code, you can't put a third roof on.
Yeah.
And so this one might be a little bit easier, but we're going back and forth with them on how we interpret the policy as opposed to how they are. That and trying to make sure that when we go out to bid, we know exactly what our contractors are going to bid on. Right now, there's a lot of language in what they're sharing with us that we may not know until we get into the roof system. We're
Sure.
saying that's not good enough because you're not going to have quality contractors bid on something that they don't know what they're going to be paid for.
Do we have legal representation for this one?
So yes, Boardman and Clark has been contacted. The problem with that is, I won't mention the insurance company's name, but there's several different lawyers that we have worked with in the past that have that insurance company on file, and so they're viewing it as a conflict of interest. So we will eventually find one that we're waiting back to hear from
That's
Boardman
one
and
more
Clark
that
if
I
they can
think we
take
should
it.
have for.
So as soon as we have that, we'll make sure that you know about that. That also ties into our Facilities and Finance Committee meeting where JP Cullen presented some of the projects that we had outside of roofing in the district and what those would cost. And then one thing I do need to do when we get to future agenda items is schedule a meeting in the next couple of weeks to take those items and then put it on a spreadsheet and then go through and make sure that we're prioritizing those projects and then pushing them out into 1 to 3 years, 3 to 5 years, 5 to 7, and 7 to 10, so that Eric has a plan on how we're going to save that money and how we're going to come up with the money to fund those projects. And as time goes along, those projects will change. What might be a priority now may fade, and new things will come up that will be more important than those. But we want to make sure that we have a plan so that Eric can budget for that.
Can I ask a question about the hail stuff?
Yeah.
There's no roof issues that could become bigger issues without it getting fixed.
So that is something that we're monitoring right now. Also what we're discussing with the insurance company. Now remember, this is our old insurance company, so they should really be working for or with us. So yet we are seeing leaks that we had not seen previously, especially with the amount of heavy rains that we've had recently. And so what Eric and I, Steve, Benny, the rest of the head custodians are doing are documenting those leaks, and when we have like a Pioneer Roofing come and fix those, we're making sure that we send that on because that should all be part of the claim.
Sure, right, because repairing damage in the meantime before they fill the claim
Yeah.
should be covered by insurance.
To give you an example, Platteville had similar storm damage. Their roofs are almost repaired at this point, and we have not started 2 different insurance companies. Actually, who Platteville has is our new insurance company. So we feel good about
That's good to know.
how we'll be able to maneuver in the future.
Oh, this is a big pain in the
Finally just got my roof fixed. Last Friday.
on my siding.
All right, is there any other comments for Mr. Perry? If not,
Thank you.
request for FFA overnight field trips.
Remember, this is just a discussion item tonight. Please ask your questions of Mr. Qualheim, and then we'll take that up for vote at the end of the month. Again, you can see all the great things. I was just talking to Mr. Qualheim before about his summers are not, his summers are filled with county fairs.
They're a lot of
all
fun.
kinds of
There's,
things.
we do all kinds of things. So I am Jim Qualheim, ag teacher, FFA advisor, along with Carson Vance. She's at a different agricultural commitment this evening. So I've done this now, gosh, it's been 18 years. This is the 19th one I've brought to the board. in regards to the overnight opportunity.
that.
I know that according to policy, we only need to do it for 2 nights or longer, but it is nice to kind of give you a highlight of, hey, a lot of these are one night things that we do, and then here are the few larger ones. And over the 18 years, the list has gotten a little longer, and it's kind of exciting with 2 ag teachers, we're able to do more things. So first on the list is the National FFA Convention. This one is down in Indianapolis. It's been in Indianapolis now, I think it's been like 8 or 9 years in a row, and it's probably gonna stay there because it's basically it's the largest convention center area with housing that we can reach. So it used to be Louisville, Kentucky, but unfortunately the last year we stayed there, we were 75 miles away just to stay. So, because it's a convention with about 60,000 to 70,000 students. We go down there, we take a coach bus with a number of other schools, Janesville, Craig, Albany, Broadhead, Judah, Stoughton as well now. And it's a fun group. This year, so on here is the coach bus. Our student cost is $200. The FFA alumni kicks in right around $150. They cover our hotel rooms for our students. And then the FFA with fundraising picks up the rest. It is a pretty expensive trip. We do have opportunities if students come to us and share that they're not quietly able to afford it, we work it into the fundraisers that they do. We kind of go, oh yeah, no problem. You're selling fruit, you're doing this, you're doing that activity, you're fine. So we make it work. And then I will also be driving separate to this one because at state convention this year, or prior to state convention, our milk quality and products team won state, and so they have to compete at nationals. So I've got to take a minivan with a couple other of our students to go down there and compete because we'll have a slightly different schedule for part of it.
What does that competition look like? Are you testing milk quality?
Yes. So at the state level, so they had to do regional, qualify for state, and then at state level, the contest is a written exam on milk quality and products. So everything from what is the Babcock test to phosphatase test to homogenization, et cetera. And then the competition, so it's kind of fun. They'll have 10 milk samples and they have to identify what's wrong with it and give it an intensity score. So if you've seen Napoleon Dynamite, it is a little similar. That's maybe the vintage version. They have 10 different cheeses that they have to identify out of a list of like 20 or so. It's a good one. There's milk versus imitation, and then also milk fat and identification. So fat content and identification is kind of fun. At national, there'll be a group project, and I don't know what that's going to look like yet. But for example, they might get the milk samples and have to do a California mastitis test in a dish with 4 circles and test milk to see if there's mastitis and then identify the score it would get. Sediment discs, things like that. So it is a fun contest. Yes.
So when you said the dairy, like what's wrong with the dairy?
Yes. What's wrong with milk?
They're not drinking it, right?
They are sampling it. Yes.
Oh,
So I tell the kids, and this group that we have going to nationals, 2 of them have done it all 4 years of high school. They were my freshmen.
Not drinking bad milk.
Well, it's not like they're all terrible. So there's
Like off
like
flavors.
they're off flavors.
Yeah.
So like maltiness because the grain got damp before being roasted. So then it may have like enzymes start working and you start breaking down your complex carbohydrates into simple sugars, roast it then, and you get that malty flavor like milk that's been in cereal. So that is one example. There are some bad examples, rancid and sour or high acid. And
I don't need to taste that.
I tell the kids if they can smell it, you probably don't need to taste it. Give it a pretty intense score. So
I don't know how long I'd last there, but
and
great.
then part of that is also for that, they just have to identify and score it. But in the test and the practicum side, they have to be able to identify like, okay, what causes a salty flavor in milk? Or what causes a chemical off flavor or foreign, et cetera. So, but so anyways, National Convention will be a blast.
Thank you for
It's
that, Tina.
always, yep. This year we're doing Tuesday through Friday as opposed to Wednesday through Saturday, due to the fact that the team has to be down there a little earlier than we can go. And then also, we don't have any American degrees recipients on our bus, and that's the only thing that happens Saturday morning. So we're trying to get kids to go every other year, because you can get your American degree 1, 2, or 3 years out of high school, so you can be up to 21 to still get that. And so by going every other year, they reverse alphabetize the states, and so when Wisconsin's towards the beginning, it's a lot better than sitting there for 4 hours while you're waiting for
That's fair.
1,500 people to walk across the stage. So yeah, so that'll be good. Fall Leadership Conference is one that we take students to just about every year. This year it's in the Dells, which is nice. It's close. It's for grades 9 through 12. Let's see. And we take, so the reason it says 6 to 12 students, that's kind of our go-to, because if we get a lot signed up, we'll take 2 vans. And then if there's more signed up than what we can take, we generally do an application process. So have you gone on one before? What activities are you participating in? What competitions are you doing? Things like that. So, halftime is similar, but smaller. It's 2 students from each chapter attend. It's always in Stevens Point. It's always in January, and it's put on by the state FFA officers. And we take 2 of our FFA officers, and it's kind of like you're halfway through the year, get pumped up about what else you can do to motivate students to compete or participate or get involved, explore what they're learning. So, and that's why that one has no cost. We take a school van, and the cost to the district on all of these is most of the time a half day to a day substitute covering us. Fall leadership, we both will probably go this year based on interest that we've seen this last spring and summer. Halftime, we both have to go to that one because we also get professional development there for staff. Wisconsin Farm Forum, this is one that some years we do, some years we don't. It depends on interest. It is only for juniors, and we can only take 2 to 4 juniors. And typically it's the kids who have an interest in production ag. So it's a little bit more, a lot of the other leadership workshops are really leadership driven, and not as much production. This one really is like, okay, kids, you're working in agriculture. What are your career opportunities? What are you doing? How do you market, if you're entrepreneurship, how do you market your farm and your product or project? So, FFA Officer Mid-Year Retreat. We do this every year. Typically in January or February, we try to make it so we miss the least amount of school. So a half day is typically what we're at. We've gone, it says Sun Prairie on there, that's probably scratched now. We typically go to the Dells is the simplest. Get out of town, take students, we sit down and we plan all of the remainder of the year. And especially the FFA banquet, which is an event we put on every year. So that's a big kind of leadership building, team building, and banquet planning. The spring leadership is very much like the fall leadership, but it's open to 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th graders. And in our district, you have to be an FFA member, you have to be in an ag class, which is state, that's nationwide. You have to, because FFA is intracurricular as opposed to extracurricular. So we don't have 7th graders in FFA because we don't have 7th grade class. But 8th through 10th grade, it's very similar to the fall. So if like a 9th or 10th grader goes in the fall, they wouldn't go in the spring because it's the same curriculum this year. Now, if they went as a 9th grader and wanted to go as a 10th grader the next year, they switch up curriculum each year. And that one is back in Stevens Point, which is nice. It's easier than when it's in Green Bay. That's a little bit more of a haul. So Then we have Wisconsin State FFA Convention. This year, if I recall, we have I think the June 9th, 10th, and 11th is when it is. And I believe the 9th and 10th, we still have school. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So we will need subs those 2 days. So, but this is where students, they go to some workshops, we sit in sessions, and they also, it's where the state convention is where either they're competing because they made it to state for a lot of things. So this last year we had a discussion meet individual who was competing. And then they also, this is where they get recognized. So like our quality products team got recognized. Braden Weiser for his entrepreneurship project got recognized. We actually this last summer had a lot of kids on stage, which was a lot of fun. So, but that will be in June. And then we do an FFA officer training. And that's typically a 2 to 3 day summer trip. This year we did it. It looked like rain the first day, so we ended up staying at school, which was great. We just worked at, now that everything's on, like, we used to, get the big pads out and jot down all of our ideas for the year, and it's the FFA officers planning out the whole year, the program of activities. We used to do a lot of it on paper. Now, everything gets typed up in a calendar, and every kid has the calendar at their hand. So, so we did it at school, which was great. Monday, it was 2 weeks ago, Monday. So Monday we worked at school from 8 to 6-ish, and then let them go home, do their chores, because a couple of them had to go to State Fair shortly after that, the following week. And then we just did a one night, so we did 2 days camping at Yellowstone, and that's where we kind of do the team bonding and the team building skills and communication skills and that stuff. So, but a lot of times it's either 1 or 2 nights camping trip. And then we do offer an FFA camping trip pending the year and the interest. So we put that out. We like to have it on here. It's zero cost to students. We just, again, like Yellowstone Lake is a good spot. We've done even close, like to Stoughton. Lake Higanza has been good. We just go camping. We did Wyalusing a handful of years. That was really nice. A little bit more of a haul, but a lot of fun. So, and then Washington Leadership Conference. This is one that Miss Vance and I don't attend with students. Students, they apply. They apply for scholarships and then apply for the conference as well. Last year, I believe we sent 3 students. Parents are in charge of their transportation to Washington, D.C. They go, it's put on by the National FFA, and they run, I think it's 7 different weeks in the summer. So you can pick which week fits. Kids get it all lined up. The FFA alumni sponsors $2,500 towards it, which is great. So if we have 3 kids and we get a state scholarship with it, then they're only having to pay maybe $200 or $300 out of pocket. But most of it then is covered, which has been great. I never attended it as a kid. Miss Carson Vance has, and kind of got the ball rolling with the FFA alumni sponsorship about 4 years ago. I think this will be our 4th year, hopefully sending kids. And the ones who have gone have, it's an incredible experience. So, and then there's a couple other options on there, things we haven't done in a number of years. Co-ops, yes, is one that has gone through a few changes. I think it's a single-day conference now up north. Envirothon is one that I'm interested in getting involved in. The hard part is it sometimes lines up against our state FFA contests. So the Envirothon isn't just an FFA area, but the FFA does use the Envirothon contest as the environmental education competition. And so it's one that I'm looking into if we can free up 3 days in April attending that in Rosholt. And then, of course, we have a lot of career development events. Most of them are not overnight, but there have been years where there isn't an equine competition close, and so we go to River Falls, and if we're going to drive to River Falls, we're probably gonna stay the night. Cause we'll have to be up there for contest by 8 AM and leaving at 3:30 in the morning with students isn't very fun. So,
Anybody.
with anybody, yes. Yeah, those are the big pieces. What kinds of questions?
I really appreciate that you do this. It gives an opportunity for students to go places they wouldn't usually, not all kids have the ability to do that. And then just like being able to go, network with other people their age and see what's going on, and bring back some of that rejuvenation and ideas. Like I love when I see staff come back from conferences like, I have this great idea. I'm like, oh my gosh, you actually want to be here. Great. So it's really good even with students to be able to see that. So thank you.
I appreciate that, thanks.
I think it's incredible that you can offer all of this with such minimal cost to the district. I'm curious, how much fundraising is FFA usually able to do?
So the FFA, we run 3 big fundraisers and then a handful of little things. The 3 big are the fruit sale in the fall. That we start selling fruit in October, November, collect the forms, December 17th this year it gets delivered. That typically generates about $5,000 in net. So that's one big piece. We've added a strawberry sale in the spring, which Carson Vance, she runs with that. I'm in charge of the fruit sale. She does that one. So and we're trying to compete, and it's really taken off. The first year we had some rough strawberries. Unfortunately, apparently the truck bringing them here had a cooling issue and it wasn't made aware to us. But this last year they were awesome. So I think that'll continue to be a good fundraiser. I don't know what that nets, if it's right around 2. And then the plant sale in the spring. So the FFA purchases the plants. Of course, the greenhouse is the school district, and some of the materials, because it's also, it's class, learning, teaching, etc. But then we do a plant sale, and this year I think she also netted an amount. I'm not sure what. I know there were a lot of years where I didn't net a lot when I was just on the plant sale, but I also kept things low and tried to keep things moving, and she's really done a great job of expanding the number of plants. The kids are getting, the cool thing with the plant science classes is they're getting both the experience of, okay, you're planting, you're propagating, you're doing the different science-based, the cloning, etc. But then we're sitting there, and the next class, the next level is, okay, how do you market this? What does this look like from a wholesale to retail side? And so, and I know we grossed a lot this year in the plant sale, but I know our expenses were up quite a bit because we did have our plugs come from Canada, and so that was a bit of a increase there. Had some issues with that stuff, but overall, the seeds all did well, and she had a really good plant sale this year. So those are the 3 big ones. We do a homecoming tailgate extravaganza. I think we're gonna do it again this year, where we do free cotton candy, and we'll have bounce house or something, activities for kids, petting zoo, etc. But then we do a food stand with pork loin sandwiches, and that's typically I don't know what it, $500 to $1,000 fundraiser as well. So something along those lines.
Very impressive. Thank you.
I also would like to appreciate you doing the paperwork for approval by the board all at one time. Everything done at one time, because, it's like.
Well, it makes it easier for me because I'm like, all right, that's done in August. Now what? What's next on the list? Because this is a little bit of downtime at the moment. So, and I appreciate the board support on all these activities. It really is fun to take a kid to a competition or to a leadership workshop and see them step out and like you mentioned, network with other kids, et cetera. It was 2 years ago, we went to the fall leadership one and brought a kid that I was like, I don't know how he's gonna do. Let's keep an eye. And we won the Spirit Stick, which is a FFA thing. Like just because the energy, and he was so engaged. He was like, all right, I think we found where we're gonna, let's keep getting you into this stuff. So it's fun to see
See that
outside.
transformation. That is pretty cool.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you for providing all these opportunities. It's great.
Yeah, totally.
Nothing else? Move on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Qualling. Presentation of senior survey results.
So just want to emphasize that our senior survey for this year was a pilot year. Something that Jeff and I had talked about, collecting data on a few things. Particularly this year, you're going to see as Jeff presents, we certainly know what their plan is after high school, things that they said that the high school does really well, and then areas for growth. Have shared with the board how we will want to expand this in the future. And then Crystal had a good suggestion about balancing. We want students to respond to this, but at the same time, want to make it as a positive experience as we can with them. So once we get the questions that we want, we'll keep that relatively static over time, so then you can see historical results based year to year. And then the last thing, I had also asked Jeff, can you make sure that we collect, if they're willing to give them, personal cell phone numbers and email addresses, because that's a great way, without having to go to a third-party vendor, to go ask your students, your former students, your graduates, questions in the future. If you want to know, like, hey, a year out of high school, 3 or 5 years out of high school, now that you've had a little bit more life experience, what did Evansville do well or not so well in preparing you? So we have that we can then send out. And then it's not a third-party vendor like LifeTrack doing that for us. It could be Mr. Crandall saying, hey, remember your old principal? I need some answers to these questions now. Would you please fill out this survey? And even with those cell phones then, it could be something that they open up through a text and are able to respond. With that, I'll turn it over to Jeff.
All right, let me go to the next slide page. So this is some data that has been collected for multiple years. We did a very brief senior survey for a lot of years, just asking what they were going to do after high school, as far as college, seeking a job, apprenticeship, enlisting in the military. So we have some more data on this. The trend I noticed this year, I put this one in, I don't think our college, our 4-year university, 2-year college has been this high in my 5 years here. So that's the highest I've seen. We had typically been down closer to 50% on that. And then when you add the tech school in, we're around 60 total. But that's bumped up quite a bit, as you can see by that. Now, that could just be this cohort of kids. But I also think it's just kind of maybe a trend with the technical training that has gone up. And then I like to add the apprenticeship into that as well, because most apprenticeships now, you have to go back for some sort of training and have to get a tech school and can need that licensure. So we're closer to that, that's what, 65% or 75% that are gonna need some sort of post-secondary work in a university or a tech school setting. So just something as a trend that in my mind clicked this year, is that's raising more than it has been in the past for us, from my remembrance and looking back at the data on where we are with that. So we can move on to the next one. So one thing we found, or I found when I got the survey results back, is it was not easy to sort short answer questions and make sense out of them, because they also spelled stuff wrong a lot, and then if they flipped words in different areas, it didn't calculate well. So what I ended up doing was going through and putting them all in the same wording, in the same order. And then I have to hyphenate anything that's more than one word, or it didn't work in this program. So that's why the stuff is hyphenated, and it really shouldn't be. But the program I used is I was able to go through all, what I think is 147 responses. And then you put them into a spreadsheet, and then you put them into this program, and it makes the ones that are most often worded in there the bigger words. So these are the things that they thought were the best things going on at the high school. So these are the things that were reported out the most that they appreciated. And you can see youth apprenticeship was there. Responsibility pass is our open campus pass for lunch and their study hall, that if they're doing what they need to in the classroom and behaviorally, they can leave during those times. Homecoming Spirit Week, you can see was a leader up there as far as just things they enjoyed about the school. During their time, you can see athletics, arts, AP classes, FFA shows up on there pretty big as well. Vocational learning was one that surprised me. So what I did for that was taking a lot of the kids who put like shop class or tech ed or welding, I just put it all under vocational learning to lump it together, because there was probably 17 different answers, but it's all the same area. So I thought it was important to kind of highlight kind of clump some of those things together and appreciated some of their reflections on like the assortment of classes they were able to take, being able to, the schedule that we have. Some of the things that I don't always think kids will point out, but they took the survey pretty seriously, I think. And were able to give us some things that they thought were going really well at the high school.
See, teachers is on there twice with one capital T and one not, so if that were.
That was probably my error then.
Was combined, should it be bigger?
I didn't catch that, I
It
must.
looked like they're the same size, like, of each other.
I copied and
Twice
pasted
as
a lot,
big.
because it was a lot of sorting and I was getting frustrated because it wasn't. So I'll take the blame on that one if it's on there twice, because
Were students only able to answer one thing, or could they list multiple things?
they could list multiple things. So if it was multiple, then I would put it in multiple lines so I could use it on the spreadsheet, yep. So those were the good things. The next slide is areas that need improvement from their area or growth. The one that I found fascinating was funding. So this is the class that
Amazing.
lost out on opportunities because we cut staff. And they're the ones who took the biggest brunt because they were a lot of times waiting for certain classes or for certain things. And then now they couldn't fit them in their schedules because we didn't have the staff. And they were made aware, you know, when they would ask me, I'd say, well, we didn't pass a referendum, we don't have funding to pay our teachers or pay for stuff in the school, so that's why we are where we were. We were trying to be honest with them. So it was interesting, we hadn't talked about it at all since the beginning of the year when they complained about everything, but it was something that stuck with them all year. Longer lunch always comes up, they always wanna be gone longer at lunch. Again, classes come up, so it was interesting to me that they appreciated the choice of classes, but then also want more class options on here. One that is interesting that I'll state why, the pranks. So they used to, previous to my time as principal, do senior pranks that were approved, and they never went well, in my opinion. So I just said, you're not doing pranks. If you get caught doing a prank, you're gonna have a consequence appropriate for what you did. And that I said, I don't approve of them, I don't want them done, I don't think it's a good look for us as a school or a building or a district. So they do not like me every year when it comes up to, and when they ask if they can do pranks, and I say nope, and give them the same answer. So that's why that one's on there, because they weren't happy at the end of the year when I told them they couldn't do a school prank. Flex, so that's the new thing we did with Tri and ACP. The reason they didn't like Flex, and it was in their comments, was ACP used to be to start the school day in Tri, and seniors weren't required to be at it. So now that it was moved and they were required to be at it again, they weren't happy because they couldn't not be at school. So that's why that ended up on there, is they just weren't happy they couldn't have the morning off. So that's kind of that. Some of the other stuff, like I said, I thought they took it seriously when they talked about engagement, which is the engagement in their classrooms. They talked about wanting more rigor.
Can you speak more to what they said about rigor? Because we've seen that from parents also. What
Yep,
are the kids' perspectives
so
on that?
they just want things to be harder. But like when I talk to kids about it, some of them will say, well, I don't have homework. And then when I inquire more, they're like, well, I said, why don't you have homework? Well, we get work time and I get it done during the day. And I'm like, okay, it doesn't mean it's not rigorous, it just means you were given time to complete it during class. So I think there's a little bit of disconnect sometimes on what is rigor versus what is just homework that you have to do outside of school. And it's, even as a parent, I've talked to parents, they're like, well, my kid doesn't have any homework, they're not being challenged. And I was like, well, that doesn't mean they're not being challenged, it means they're not being required to do work outside of school, which is different than having rigor. So it's something that we've talked about as a staff, and we'll continue to make sure we are being rigorous in the classes in that. But I think it's just something for us to be aware of and continue to work on. But I also think there's a little misconception of
AP classes that we would like to direct you to.
yeah, and that's the other part is getting them in classes that are more challenging than for them, because they're there for some of them just won't do them.
I have a question. So when I look at this, the biggest thing that stood out to me that I'm like, oh, I want to know more, was stability and positivity. Are they referring to the people that they interact every day, meaning their teachers, or are they referring to their peers? Like, that's just those two words. Like, our children should always have stability, and our children should have an environment that we challenge but is still positive. So those two words stuck out to me.
So
What does that
the
mean?
positivity, most of the extra comments were about classmates. So it was more peer-to-peer positivity. Most of the stability questions were change in staff, change in administration, change they also had multiple different schedules over their time. This is also the grade that went through COVID, so when they're looking at their high school, middle, it's just different. So they just, some of those things were coming out, like, you know, we had 2 different schedules in my time in high school, and, you know, we were online as 8th graders, like that came up in some of the things as I was my 8th grade time. So it was, that's where I would take most of it from, was just, they had a lot of changes in their 4 years, 5 years, and, you know, from middle school to high school.
I'd be interested to see what the next class
Yep,
is, if those
and-
words are used again.
And that's where we'll have some more data for that, on some of that, so. So that's what I took from the stability, and the positivity was all about, like, I wish my classmates were nicer to me.
That's why I went right to peers. I was like,
Yeah.
is it peer related? I know, like, you know, that grade, but okay.
And food always comes up, no matter what food we have, they don't like the food, so.
And phones, I assume they're allowed to use their phones too much? And that's
No,
what they're
they
complaining
didn't,
about?
they didn't like the phone policy because we didn't allow phones.
No.
That was another one that they weren't happy about.
They still park their phones in those little phone parking lots.
They're supposed to put it in the phone pocket or leave it in their locker. Some of them will refuse both and put it in their waistband where you can't see it, and
Okay.
the reality of it, but as long as it doesn't get pulled out during class, that's what we're really focusing on. Is that
I like that.
One of the small words is recess. Did you have more than one kid?
we had multiple kids put recess down, yes, which I think some of them, I could tell, like, cause they would be on the chart like next to each other, so I think it was people who did it together. And I could put recess. There was a couple ones that were, I think they had the exact same answers, like 3 or 4 in a row. So I'm like, I think a group of 4 kids sat and did this together and all answered recess. So.
I'll be happy to know that we heard them.
So yeah, so I guess we're gonna use this for reflection. I have some of this information in my staff slides to begin the year to talk about. And then Nate and I have talked about questions that we wanna add to have the data. And then I also want to look at how to phrase stuff so it is easier to dissect the data. Not that I didn't enjoy going through all that data and figuring it out, but it took a lot more time than I expected it to. So trying to find a more effective way to survey if we can. If not, I will do it again because it was worth the information at the end to see where they're feeling and everything.
Can you get that information pulled into the Excel so then you can take out all the duplications so that you have a more condensed, when you're like putting stuff together for like this, I'm just thinking.
Yes, yep, and that's, so I exported it out of Google into a Google sheet and was able to sort stuff from there and then reword stuff. It just, when you, like I said, it's just short answer when I was looking at, like, you know, the amount of times homecoming was spelled wrong. Stuff like that I was like, well, they were probably rushing to get it done too, so. Thank you.
Randall, moving on, presentation of the district's children at risk report.
So by state statute, we need to bring a student at risk report to you by the middle of August each year. And it's really focused on 6 different indicators. The first one is students that are behind in credits. That's fairly simple for us to pull, look through, and report on. The next one is a little bit more liberal in how we could interpret this, but that's 2 or more years behind their age group in basic skills. So when Mark and I and the principals talked about what do we want this to look like, on almost all of the statewide assessments that are required, there's usually a developing score, which is at the bottom, that would then be 2 levels below benchmark, grade level. And so that's where we were using those numbers. I'll come back to that. Habitual truants, I mentioned that we just met with the municipal judge today. He had some comments on how effective our policies and practices are. Kim Katzenmeyer's not here tonight, but she does an excellent job at representing the district at those Saturday court dates. So she comes in on Saturdays and goes to those. So these numbers that you see there are students that are going through that system. Teenage parents would be those that are in our schools. I would not include any homeschool students. And then the next one that you see there is adjudicated delinquents. I've provided a definition for you. That would be a conviction and then someone that's currently in the court system. So usually we get a notification of who that student is, or we know that they've missed school time because they're incarcerated or in a state institution. And then the last one, again, very specific, eighth graders who in all 4 areas of the forward scored at a basic level. So given that that was what the indicators are, I have another document that I share with the administrative team that actually has links to this data so that we know where the data is linked to. So on the very top, it actually has the credits earned by grade, next year's seniors, juniors, and sophomores, and then where they are in credits, so then we highlight those. Jeff and his staff have those now. That's something that our staff is very well aware of. In fact, Mark and I and Janessa all attend student success team meetings at the high school, and a lot of what we talk about is who's on pace and who's not on pace to graduate. You notice upcoming class, there's quite a high number compared to 1 and 2 in some of the lower grades. Those are where we can really use our GED Option 2 program and an alternative program to make sure that we're getting students what they need. Not sure if Mr.
This looks like it's about, could be even up to 25% of the class. It's like, it depends. You know,
Sure.
classes run about 120, 130 usually these days, so.
Can I ask a question before you answer that? So for grade 5, is that a total of 23 students, or could that be a total of 13? Because there's math and ELA?
Yeah, they're separate, so it could be, we
So
don't.
one student could be counted in both of
Yes,
those
exactly.
columns.
Yeah, and as you notice with the 8th grade, that tends to happen frequently. To answer your question there, Melissa, remember, they're just 1 credit shy of graduating, so they have to make up an additional credit. When we pull these, that could still be through summer school that they're able to make up that credit. So we're still working on those, but those are students, even this spring, we've already identified and what their plan is for this upcoming year.
And those numbers were before summer school classes were done, so hopefully that number is less. I know there was a bunch of those students who came in to try to not be behind.
The developing ones, those are ones, and again, I'm not sure if Mark has any comments on this, but that's a lot of what we're focusing our math and reading interventions on, or our tier 2 interventions, which when staff know who is in these categories that they have in their classroom, they may be pulling small groups while others are working independently to work on skills. Jess is here tonight. That's what their What I Need or Win Time is used for as well. Anything you wanted to add on that one, Mark, on specifically the developing scores?
Yeah, I would just add a couple pieces. Number one is there's many hands on deck with this. You know, what Mr. Perry mentioned, the student success team with school counselors monitoring not only credits but attendance and so on, starting at the high school and working toward the middle school. I know that the statute mentions grade 5 through 12, but like you mentioned, win time, we start as early as 4K in tracking attendance, communicating with families, getting some data on how students are doing academically. I'm excited about, not so long ago I said this at the podium, I'm excited about the additional intervention pieces we've brought to the K-5 level as well as the 6-12 level, because it again, it helps us to use that data to identify what kids need and how to help them and hopefully point that in the right direction. Mr. Perry, you asked me about the developing piece.
Yeah, anything you wanted to add on
Yes,
those
you know,
interventions?
what we're gonna ask of our staff this year is to base their SLOs, their student learning outcomes, around this data as a district. Now, of course, we're using different data points at different levels, but really focusing in on that. We brought in, maybe we mentioned this in a previous board meeting, John Graff from CSIS 6, and he helped us compile all our district data, academically and otherwise. But we take a close look at which students are maybe on the border of into another category or vice versa, and really working on moving the needle with that, but looking at student growth across the board, whatever level they're at. So that's going to be a big focus of our PD, not just this August, but throughout the school year and going forward.
Mark, I have a question. Do we have data, I know it's starting that collecting phase of data, but do we have data, like is 35 a high number for grade 11? Or is that pretty like standard? Or can we not tell?
About like 120, 130 normal.
I would say it's a number we want to bring down for sure. And that's some of the work we're going to do.
I was wondering, a related thing, so like with that big that's a big spike in grade 11, there's a big spike in grade 9. Do we have a sense of, is that because like the grade 9, they're in high school this year, so obviously things are very different for them, but were those numbers, like was it that group of kids who were also struggling at a greater degree in 8th grade, or is this more of a 9th grade thing that's gonna stay the same?
I think a big piece of that is the metrics changing. And pre-ACT comes into play. Then it's the ACT in grade 11. Again, that's some work we're gonna do this year where we're offering our students an opportunity to take a pre-AC test in September to really help themselves, help their families, help us understand where they are in those skills so we can address them throughout the year, and intentionally plan for that. I think another aspect we're adding that'll help hugely is a methodize. It's a test prep. Mr. Crandall talked about their flex time in ACT. On Monday, students are going to literally get onto a program and practice the ACT. One thing I said to staff, whether you're preparing for a musical or a chorus concert or a football game, the instructors, the coaches, they want students to prepare and be familiar with what they're going to do on stage. We have great teaching and learning going on every day, but if a test feels unique and different, test anxieties come to be, some of these things we're doing will help to minimize that, so students feel a little more comfortable showing what they really do know on those tests.
So we're mitigating it, but we shouldn't be, particularly concerned if like this group of 8th graders or 7th graders have the lower numbers when they get to 9th grade, like it is a step up in kind of the expectation level, right? So it wouldn't be, it'd be great if we can keep these levels really low, but it wouldn't be shocking if some of them who weren't developing are developing when they get to 9th grade, for instance.
Yes. I do think, and I know I'm talking about a long game here, but I do think the curricula we put in place from 4K on in both literacy and math, if we stay the course, a lot of that will work itself out.
Great.
We talked about this before, but are there things that we can do to help parents at home when it comes to these kinds of things? As we said, we have these new metrics, these new curriculums that we're putting in place, and as a parent myself, I'm not always caught up to how I can help at home. So is there anything we can do, because the learning doesn't stop when our children leave school? We're supposed to be that bridge. Are there things that we can give to parents to help in this aspect?
I could jump in there, Mark. I think specifically when we're talking about the developing coming from, again, that would be 5, 6, 7, and 8 on the forward, 9, 10 on the pre-ACT, and 11 on the ACT. On the forward, there's what's called a sandbox feature. So it does allow, and that would be a communication piece with our principals to parents to say, if you as a parent can even go in and with your student can look at what kinds of questions are asked, and then it sets up even what it will look like on your computer screen, on your Chromebook screen, so that even our younger kids, using a mouse, using their device to be able to manipulate that with timers is good. The other thing that I think Jeff and high school staff will really find with Methodize is parents can go in as well, and if I had a 9th or 10th grade student at home, I can say, hey, what does this look like? And they can go in and log in and show. There's lessons in each area: English, math, science, and reading. And then there's quizzes that they can have. And then again, based on how they score on those quizzes, it really develops a program for you. So I think if we do a nice job of communicating to parents, they can at least maybe have that conversation with check-in, hey, I hear you have the opportunity to do this program. What does it look like? Log in for me. I'd like to see it.
And I don't have the pleasure of having you yet as a principal, so if I'm asking this question because I don't know if you already do it, as a parent, I would love to be able to come to an event where you're showing me where to do these things, because it's one thing for you to write it, but half the time, I read it, but it doesn't mean I fully understand it, or maybe I'm a parent that's not good with technology. I'm just wondering if there could be and you may do this already, where when we go into the grades and do these orientations, are parents able to see this in action, show them where to go? And I'm just thinking about my children. 2 of my children would probably tell me some of these things, and one of my child would probably leave me out to hang. So I'm just wondering, do we do that? Can we do that?
We have it because it's new this year,
Got it.
so
Okay.
I would say we have not done it yet.
Got it.
But that is something we can look at doing. The other thing we'll do is we can have our tech department make videos that show
That'd be
parents
great.
how to
Yeah.
You
log in.
get
and
so
do it.
much buy-in
So
from that.
they just sent me one the other day because I was messing with it for the students, and they sent me one on how the students log into it. And they
Okay.
made a video for me for it. But that would be easy enough for us to do that,
I would
or
appreciate that.
or have someone available to show it at school. We just typically will have those options, and we don't get a lot of parents who show up, so having a video
I
text is just
totally
a more
understand.
efficient way to do it, so.
I just put in a plug because it's not a big expenditure for us to purchase Methodize for our 9th through 11th grade students. But they're really getting, like, if you were to go out and sign up for an ACT prep course, you're probably paying somewhere around $200 for that. Not that I'm saying that that's not necessary, but it really could supplement that. And then there's an equity issue there where if you can't afford that, we're leveling out that playing field. And again, you can do it. You can do it at night. You can do it on weekends over the summer. I really do think that some students will, many students, I hope, will grab onto this. I mean, as a former high school principal, looking at even a couple of points difference in an ACT score not only matters when you're applying to schools, but also, especially in a private setting, private school setting, what you might get in scholarships with just a couple points difference in an ACT score.
Thank you.
Last thing I wanted to mention on this, again, we met with the police department. We have a great relationship with our PD and working through habitual truants. I mean, we had a great conversation today about when or ever do we ticket parents, which happen a lot, but especially at lower grades where they're responsible for getting the kids out of bed and then to school. We had an open conversation about that today, and handling different situations in truancy. So they've been great with that.
I have 2 comments and 1 question.
Sure.
Habitual truancy is low, which is really, really good. I guess what I would like to maybe think about is what conversations are taking place department-wide, school-wide, across the board to say they're coming to school and yet their scores for many kids are in the developing. So like, what are we doing to make sure that when they're there, they're engaged and learning? And then it would be interesting to maybe dissect the data for grade 9, 10, and 11. And I am a math person, and this is why I'm saying it. Because of the scheduling at the high school, if you take math, term 4, you are missing half of the curriculum that is probably going to benefit you if you take it before the pre-ACT and the ACT. So that's a side effect of the schedule that we have. And then my one question would be, are our courses 3 through 12, I know grade 3 is not on here, are the courses aligned to what is tested on the forward exam, pre-ACT and ACT? I know we have Common Core state standards, but are we also incorporating what our students are expected to master to be deemed proficient by the state?
Sure, and I can answer it a little bit, and then I'll turn it over to Mark too. But especially now at 3 through 5, and then into the middle school with Bridges, Illustrative, and then with our CKLA curriculum, that is certainly helping. I know Mark mentioned a long game here, but being aligned. The other piece is our learning outcomes and targets that our staff is working on. They put quite a bit of time and effort. When we were looking at our grading practices in the last year or so that have been brought to the board, we wanted to make sure that that didn't go by the wayside, that we were still focusing. Like, it's, yes, letter grade is important, but are we still hitting those standards? I'm not sure if you want to add anything else to that.
The only piece I'd add is part of that data we looked at as an admin team this summer, and we're going to bring to our staffs in August. We're literally pre-ACT, ACT, even forward heat maps. So our curriculum, yes, is aligned to the standards, but we're also taking a real close look at how many times a type of question is asked, a certain skill is being expected to, students know and be able to do. That's going to be a big focus of ours in the data. So we really have a clear understanding of what's showing up on those exams as we're teaching.
I don't suppose you get the granular thing of like which particular, sub areas our kids are getting wrong. Like if there's one area in math that they're just.
It does go that deep. In fact, we'll even give you a sample question on what that would look like. So if it's a English language arts teacher and they're looking at ELA and like, why are our kids struggling on this particular skill? They can actually go in and look like what a sample question would be, so they have an idea of how that's being asked of the students and maybe why they're getting that question wrong.
That's really helpful.
I do want to go back to what Crystal said, because I know we've had a conversation about that too. But that is something I think we need to look at now in the next couple of years, because depending on when students are taking certain classes, especially core classes, math and science in particular, if it is 2 and 4, then they're being tested on pre-ACT or ACT, they're missing some content there before they're being tested. So that's something that we need to keep a very close eye on and, look at, is what we're doing the best, not just to teach the test, but set our kids up for success. Overall, I wanted to point out it's in both the public content and the board's information that ultimately the reason that the state wants us to keep an eye on this is they're really looking like, are you graduating your students on time with their peers? So yes, there's very concerning information in here, things that we are working on currently and that we want to share with our staff. But when you do look at the dropout data for the district, that's still very strong. That also ties into our our school report card scores. That is not where we're struggling. Where we are struggling, and kind of goes back to what Crystal was picking out, is this sort of information populates our target outcomes. So it's a specific part of our state report card score. And it's not that we're not getting students through. Where we're struggling is not even achievement necessarily with our most struggling kids. It really is growth. And so if we can make sure that focus is like, how much can we push our kids from where they start the year to the end of the year, that's really where we're going to make gains. And then you would see that second section there on developing, hopefully turn a corner. Even looking at, making our staff aware of how close a student might be from one category to another. So from like basic to proficient, and really saying like, not only getting students confidence, like, hey, you're this close, but also like putting the time and energy into those kids so that you can make that jump. Sometimes it might be, I hate to say this, but it might be a couple of questions on a state standardized test that would get that kid from one area to another.
All right, any other questions? If not, let's go to update on 4-year-old kindergarten position from Kids Corner.
And I had sent an email out to the board about this when it started to take shape. I want to say, first of all, I have great admiration and respect for Jamie Fellows. I've worked with her now for a couple of years. She does a fantastic job, and most of you would know has a great reputation in the community. Parents will continue to send their kids there because of the program that she's developed. Starting in early July, we were trying to help Kids Corner because they were struggling getting applicants to fill some of the positions that they had open. So Jess Erdahl was very instrumental in that. After we got that posted, I was also sending those to Jamie to make sure she knew who was applying for the positions. Jess was actually helping interview. We did get to a point then within July where Jamie said, I'm not finding staff to fill my current openings. And this was heartbreaking for her. I don't want to go into too much detail, but again, she's done a great job with that program and has been successful. So that was very tough for her. At some point though, Mark and Jess and I had to say, Jamie, if you can't do it and it's going to come back to the district, we need to know as soon as possible because we need to make plans. Also, information had already gone out earlier in the last school year, placements for 4K and where there would be. So Jess had to communicate with parents about that changeover. That being said, once the district posted that 4K position, don't want to go into a lot of detail, but benefits are a huge part of what the district can offer, and that may have been a hang up with some people, whether they applied for the Kids Corner position and then applied for our position. We had a lot of great candidates when it was our position that was posted. Came away with a quality candidate who's on the consent agenda tonight. A lot of experience who I think will be great. The space is not ideal because it's the space in Tris, so it's half a building away for Jess. In terms of funding, Eric and I have talked about this, the funding that, remember this came to the board in the site agreement, we typically would give both Magic Moments and Kids Corner, now will be used to fund this position. So given the timeline, it's a really quick turnaround, and again, I want to thank Jess for taking that on. At some point in time, this will be a positive for the district, especially when the state fully funds 4K, all day, every day 4K. Right now we're only getting 60% funding for 4K. The fact that we will have this one back, when that eventually happens, I think it's just a matter of time. It will help the district in terms of funding and per pupil aid. So again, just want to thank Jess, just wanted to make the board aware, our parents are aware at this point. And again, we tried to honor their requests. Of course, a lot of parents want to be in the AM because they've got daycare or other things set up for the PM. That's usually what they want, so we've tried to honor all those. I think we'll have a really quality program set up, but wanted to make the board aware of that.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
And maybe it's for Jess, but with our, running 200 childcare center in Madison, I understand what you're going through. So are we using the Teach Scholarship to our advantage when, I'm like thinking of our education assistants that we have, teachers that we would hire if we're gonna run our own 4Ks. Are we promoting the Teach Scholarship so that we have applicants coming in where we can help fund because Teach just now made master degree scholarships. So not only are they doing associates and bachelors, they're now doing 6 courses they'll pay for masters. So I'm just wondering, can we start promoting that we stand by those who want to get an education degree to stay with us? Now with the passing of the budget and stuff like that, I'm just wondering if we're utilizing that promotion.
Yeah, we definitely reached out to EAs, and Jamie spoke with all of her employees to see if anyone would be interested in that. And a few of them talked to me about it, but just couldn't commit to the school plus taking on a new role.
Got it.
There's also a great opportunity that we have promoted with staff before through Edgewood College, that especially if you already have a 4-year degree, a master's program for about less than $9,000, which pays for itself almost immediately. But then they do have another program where they will take an educational assistant and get them through in an expedited fashion with a 4-year degree and then a teaching license.
They also get stipends. So they'll send, depending on your degree, they'll send you stipends, like them personally stipends. Like I got paid like $900 one year just for signing up for the registry and weekends, and the Teach Scholarship. So like you just sign up and based off of how many years of experience the degree you get paid annually on top of it, and it's from them, not us, so you don't have to worry about taxes or anything like that. So they're just like certain things, because everyone's struggling with childcare, that there's great promotions out there. Thanks.
Are we running, do we still have one 4K program that's not in-house?
Yes, Magic Moments.
Okay, so I got
And
you.
they have a morning and afternoon.
But we
session.
now have two of the ones that used to be
Correct.
run. Okay, gotcha.
And Magic Moments was done, and then they came back, right? Or was that someone else?
They just came in the district.
Oh, they just
into our location.
So there's 6 sections.
Correct.
2 morning, 2 afternoon here,
Yes.
and then 1 at Magic Moments morning,
Yes.
1 at, okay.
But they're all in our building.
They're all
Correct.
housed.
Yes, okay.
Yes, you're all housed here.
Nice.
Alright, is there any other questions? Now moving on to budget finance, July financial summary.
Before I turn it over to Eric, again, he's produced some of the same documents that you were used to with year-to-date data from Tom. having worked with Eric for a number of years, you might see a slight, and we've had a few questions about this, but you might see a slight difference in how we're budgeting. So the way that Eric and I approach things is a worst case scenario system. And the reason that we do it that way is we want to make sure if things go as, again, as badly as they could, that we've got a budget in place that could handle that. So Crystal asked a great question today about like athletics and why is it more this year than last year? Well, in the budget that we have this year, just to give you an example, even though that we don't have, we have open coaching positions, which we probably will not fill, they're still in the budget as a placeholder in case we do fill them. Same thing, if we don't run a JV3 level, you're not paying for those officials and game workers, but we're not taking those out of the budget yet until we know that for sure. So the example that I use is my tax preparation person. I've used him for about 20 years. And when I go in to see my tax preparer, he will usually tell me when I leave, well, let's see if we can break even for you this year. And then when I go back in a week or two and I pick up my tax that I have returned, I feel pretty good about that. Like, hey, he's done a pretty good job. At least with Eric and I, what we're trying to tell you is this is the very worst case scenario. We certainly plan on a balanced budget, which was the plan for this year. In the 3 years of the referendum, remember we knew we were going to have a surplus in year 1, balanced budget in year 2, and then the reason that we were putting some money into fund balance was for a potential deficit, slight deficit in year 3. So before I turn it over to Eric, I just wanted to let you know that philosophy that we're always going to prepare for the worst.
So a lot of things I've been doing is meeting with different staff members to make sure I understand what the needs are, so that we can take a look at where the budget is, and then moving forward and meeting those needs. One of the bigger things that I'm taking a look on here is staffing. Without knowing what the new staff's insurance elections are going to be, that has a pretty significant swing from somebody who wants health insurance to someone who doesn't. And so with that worst case scenario, we do have quite a few employees that I'm just going to meet with Jody Wilder tomorrow to try to understand where, or the knowledge that she's obtained just from talking to the new staff. And so that will
give you an idea on that. For example, district pays about $20,000 for a family plan. About half of that for a single plan, and then $2,250, $2,250 for cash in lieu. What Eric's preparing though is, and that's why you see a little slight deficit at this point, is we're planning on everybody taking family. Will everybody take family? No, but we have to prepare for that. Many of them will probably do cash in lieu, which then is an $18,000 swing for every employee like that. Sorry to interrupt, Eric.
No, not at all. That's great. I talked with Steve and his crew, the maintenance staff. There is some equipment that they need for the fields, just for the buildings, those kinds of things. So I did put a little bit of a buffer, about $60,000 in the budget for his equipment that he may need. We also did talk about that. That's a potential that if there is a place to cut, that may be one of them. Other things we put in here is our insurance deductible. I put $25,000 in for that. We're still understanding what that overall impact is going to be, but that's going to be a while as we talk with the insurance company. Other things, the special ed transfer. We just made that transfer, but we've already had to make an adjustment based upon not only the audit, but the audit with DPI. So they're taking a look and giving me things that we need to adjust and fix, and so that's going to shift that transfer one way or the other. Right now I have to make an entry for about $10,000 more because of those shifts.
When you say shifts and adjustments, what particularly are we spending for like the special ed that you had to make the shifts and stuff?
The DPI, if there's something that they deem as ineligible, so I have to shift those kinds of things.
So just like you're basically handing them the things we spent and they're like, I'll pay for it.
Yep. So we used to give all of our data to DPI once a month. I've switched that to once a week so that we can actually have more up-to-date numbers and I can take a look at it and react better.
one of the things that you'll also see as a strength of Eric's is any grant claims. The sooner, so the money is there. As soon as you claim that grant, it comes back into the district. And so he does a very good job at claiming those as soon as that we can, which then reduces the amount that we might have to short-term borrow for payroll when we get to the lean November, December, January months.
Thank you very much. Other things with the grants, though, I've been working a lot with Mark and Janessa to try to figure out what those grants look like for us next year. Some information has been released about Title I. And so Mark and I sat down today, created a budget for it, did all the back work so that we could actually start to claim that right away day one. Tomorrow, Justin and I, Janessa are going to work on the Fund 27 budget so I can upload that into there to make her reports more meaningful. I'm starting to open up the books a little bit to each one of the principals and Mark and Janessa so they can understand where their budget sits at all times. So once a week they will get a report of how they're doing. So we have that set up. It's just a matter of getting the information in there so it makes it more meaningful. And that's why I spent a lot of time trying to get the budget, the preliminary budget in here so that these reports that I provide you have more meaning. So you can actually compare to what has been spent to what the budget would potentially be. We also taking a look at this $400,000 today. Even as new information comes in, I'm able to update the budget right away. So we've already shifted down $30,000 just because I did find out about a couple of employees and their benefits that they have not chosen to take. So that will help itself out as we go. Other things I plan on doing, educating staff. I've started a admin assistant meeting that we're going to start next Friday and kind of talk about where they're putting different items in the budget. When I sat down when I first got here, I was looking at all the charges coming through. I did notice some things that should be a different code than what it is now. So we're going to get that under control and then it'll look a lot differently in the budget.
Any other questions for Eric?
Not a question, I guess, just a wondering. So if we're doing worst case scenario and we approve a budget in October, I would just be cautious about the worst case scenario, things that are still lingering and making a tax levy more than we need to. And how that will be looked at in the future. So worst case scenario is great to a certain degree of making sure we're financially responsible.
One of the big things is Nate and I meet multiple times a week and talk a little bit about budget. When more information comes in, I'm able to put that in the Baird model and be able to kind of back off. But right now, we're about $370,000 as a deficit. We know that's not going to be the final. And as more information comes in, state funding comes in, grants come in, those kinds of things, I update it right away. And so that, yeah, you're absolutely right. So we're constantly fixing it until we get to that point where we can't turn around.
All right, is there any other questions? If not,
I do have a question about cash and loan. What percent of our staff take cash and loan?
It's a really good question. I know it's about 50%. I'd have to check with Jody on that. But I haven't done the math as figuring out the total number of people who are in cash and loan.
Could you get that from Jody? And
yeah.
Maybe in the,
Well, one of the things I wonder is how does that now with our comparables? What do our comparable districts do?
yeah, we just looked at that last spring, Melissa, when we renewed with our health insurance, and that 2250 in at least what USI, who advises us, had in other districts that they know that they work with, is on the low end of that number. The
50. Talking about cash and loan.
Yep, $3,250. Yeah, so that's on the.
That's low compared to others who offer it. I'm just wondering I mean, my daughter works for a district that doesn't even have it, so.
Sure.
I wonder how do we in our comparables group stack up there? We
Yeah.
have a list of comparables. Do they offer cash in lieu?
And what I'm telling you is what USI provided us with when we made our decision, that included, I think, 7 other districts in our area. They all offered it and we were on the lower
They
end.
all offer. So it's, well, I presume that all of, whenever we stack up our data, our pay data, et cetera, it's always the same group of comparables.
This one's a little bit unique because USI works with many different districts and they were giving us comparables of those in the area that they work with, including Evansville.
Business managers that I'm a part of a group, they're looking at alternatives to cash in lieu, just to try to balance their budgets as well.
What are some of those alternatives?
There is a program, a family reimbursement account, that is newer to the market. It's a little bit confusing, but once you get it set up, it's to incentivize staff members not to take our insurance.
So for example, if you have a employee here, their spouse, they could go on their spouse's insurance, health insurance. Some of those plans will pay for your deductibles on your spouse's insurance so that there's a further incentive to do just that.
The hard part about it is it's the education piece of it, understanding is difficult. The other part is that it's not for new employees. It's only for existing employees who make a change to their health insurance.
Like, have a kid or something?
No, make a change, it's in dropping ours and going on to their spouses.
Oh.
During the renewal process.
So to qualify for that, you'd have to take our insurance and then drop it?
Correct.
Well, what if you don't want to take it to begin with?
You don't qualify because of IRS rules.
All right.
And then there's other things that with an HSA, if your spouse has an HSA, you are responsible for a certain portion before that FRA.
All right, next. Board policy, first reading,
yeah.
7,000, 8,000, 9,000.
So I want to again thank the committee, Elliot, Ryan, and Crystal. This is the last of the 3 updates since 2022. As I was going through them, there's only 33 updates, but they were very intense policies. So typically, if we had 33, we might talk about a dozen, maybe half of them. This time, we talked about 24 out of the 33 policies specifically and had questions about them. And you can,
3-hour.
yeah, that was a 3-hour meeting. So, and then Melissa did have a correction to 7440, which I updated in there. It was a grammatical error. I think when we were looking, the 4 of us were looking at that, we meant to make a change and we struck something out that we should have left there. So that will be in for the second reading and approval at the end of the month. And when we do get to that point, again, we'll be able to start rolling these over. Dr. Onsager thinks that could happen by the end of September, so we'll just be dealing with 1 set of policies, which will be fantastic. And then we will have an update that we'll have to do before the holidays. And there are some things Melissa and I talked about, a policy or 2 in the 3,000, 2 policies, one in the 3,000, one in the 4,000s. And then Crystal and I have a couple picked out, memorials and student participation at board meetings that we could also make part of that update, probably before November.
Just a side note, I noticed that when I was doing the student registration, there's at least one section of that refers to policy that we'll have to update.
Yes, there is quite a few of that, and then in our annual notices on our website, there's a lot that tie back to our policy that a year, not even, but sometime at this year when we do roll over, we'll have to update all those. Yeah, because the links will no longer be there.
All right, if there's no other questions, consent, does anybody want anything removed?
I would like to remove, I have to look where I am here. Staff, action on staff changes.
Entire,
All of them?
Whole thing?
the whole thing?
Yes.
I'll entertain a motion to approve consent with the removal of action on staff changes. B.
I move to approve the consent agenda items A.
There's a motion, is there a second? There's a second, let's vote.
I know Hope had to step out, so are we okay to vote?
Oh,
Or try to grab her?
I mean,
As that's happening, just wanted a reminder after our last meeting that when we pull staffing, WASB and then our own legal counsel, Doug Whitty, would not recommend talking about individual candidates. So if you want to vote something down, but we should not be having public conversations about candidates because you haven't voted on them, they're not our employees at this point. I will also just, we talked about this one other time about after we came back from the state convention, that employees do watch us or candidates watch our board meetings. And so what we're talking about publicly, again, we should never be talking about a specific person in open session.
Right. When you say a specific person, would that include like a position? You know, so if someone said, I want to discuss whether or not we should be hiring a coach for this particular thing or something, is that appropriate?
It could be.
So like the last meeting, we talked about, well, this position hiring, we're offering this amount.
Yeah, that we should not have gone there.
Okay.
Yeah, I know Crystal's point was to just vote no on that, but we should not be talking about a specific individual in open session.
I guess my feeling is, once we offer someone something, it's a bad look to pull it back.
Agreed.
That makes the whole district look bad.
Agreed.
Is there a way to get to that point, to discuss that? I mean, we kind of talked about that last week, but
Sure.
last.
I would just go back to what Seth had said. You've hired me. You've approved all of our administrators. The amount of time that they put in going through weekend applications, reading not only the application, but the resumes, and then letters of recommendation, putting together an interview committee, which then makes a recommendation, and then usually the director or principal, along with myself and then the business manager making that offer. There's just it's time intensive, so.
I agree with that.
all right, there's a motion, a second. Hope, I think, I didn't see it step out, but it was.
I apologize. My daughter's braces fell off.
No, it's fine. It's the motion is just consent item A.
Oh, are we both there?
But to your point, we shouldn't pull a specific staff hire. If someone wants to pull consent staff, we should pull all of them like we're doing right now.
It'll depend where the discussion goes.
I see.
Motion carries 7-0. I'll entertain a motion to approve action on staff changes.
I make a motion to approve action on staff change.
Is there a second?
second.
There's a second. Any discussion on action
just
on
have
staff changes?
I just have a question. Are all roles good to go now? Are we feeling good for the incoming school year?
The only position that we do not have filled is, well, actually, we are fully staffed at this point. There could be one more EA position that we're looking at.
Perfect.
Wonderful. Nice. That must make everybody feel a little big breath of fresh air. Okay. Have we got a motion and a second? And
Yes.
We're under discussion.
we're ready for discussion, okay. Nate and I had a lively discussion. You probably might call it something else, but we had a lively discussion about several and sundry salaries. And in the course of that discussion, some of the years of experiences that were attributed to people didn't really come from the core experiences that they were going to be doing here. They had experience in one area, and they had other experience in teaching, and to me that was the applicable experience. But in reality, what came out of this whole conversation, I believe, is that I was on a board that was equally as strapped for finances as this one is. And we always encouraged an administration to look at less experienced candidates, because it's just a way to help mitigate those financial issues. However, when I have to say, because I haven't looked at the data for 2 years now, as a vice president, I was on the committee for negotiations, and had not seen the salary schedule for the what are they? Educational assistants, EAs. And it's just as woefully inadequate as it was when we started to deal with it back in 2017. And we looked at all the different, this time we were looking at all of the different groups, employee groups, all the salary, agreed upon comparables. And they were by far the most egregiously underpaid group in the district by something on the order of 15 or 20% low. And so that was our first fix. We gave them a $2 raise. In intervening years, what is it now, 8 years? They've gone up a whole $2. And according to Nate, it is $2 low in every single one of the categories. So I said, this needs to be fixed. And the way we did it, we did not do this during negotiations, because negotiations really, it was interpreted at the time when we were doing this, is that we could not do salary schedule discussions with employees during negotiations. It was done in the compensation committees. And that was the first we attacked. We looked at them, and we did not bring it up to the average at the time. The $14.50 was still like 50 cents lower than the average of the agreed upon comparable group. So it should have been $15, but we didn't feel like we could go that far. Well, we should have, apparently, because
So here's what I would say, that's the scale is not on the agenda. We're voting on the consent right here, that is what's presenting to us. Now, I agree that we have to address that, and it can be addressed. We tried addressing it last negotiations, which we made some progress. There could be some more steps in progress.
you're not ever gonna make it if you.
We just say we fulfilled all the positions.
Yeah, I think her point is we're just
I
not
get
paying them
it,
enough.
but, I mean, there's a thing called market value for roles, and if we can fulfill those roles.
If you have to attribute years of experience to get them high enough on the salary schedule to get them to come here, that is not a good thing. You have to attribute food service years of experience to people to come and be an educational assistance to get them onto the level of number of years of experience, well, they were agree to come and work for us, that is not good. So I would much rather fix the problem and get real, very competitive in our salary. And it might not be on it, but it is the very reason, the very fundamental reason why I have so many issues.
And Mitch, Elliott, and Hope are on that committee. Eric's already developed where we could go with that salary schedule, wage schedule. Melissa and I talked a little bit about this today. The fastest way, if you're going to keep the same schedule, is to put the increase on percent per cell, because it's then on their actual. If you do that on base wages, some of those lower base wages then bring down that wage increase. We do believe, like, even if you look at the starting, Melissa mentioned 1585. Potentially, we could have a starting wage instead of 1685, which is currently in the 17s this year. And then at the top end, we've gone from about $20 an hour. Potentially this year it could be $22 an hour. That does put us in a much more competitive area. Again, that does cost money, but Eric and I are working on at least showing that to the board's committee, obviously before we go into negotiations, so we're in good shape.
I'd be interested in seeing the overall district-wide impact on raising that across the board.
Yeah.
Sure.
And also I feel
that's
like
what that will do.
while you're looking at this particular group, all of the groups need to be reviewed to make sure that we're being competitive.
Sure.
And you mentioned that the high teacher salary is no longer competitive amongst the agreed upon comparables. All of that needs to be dealt with. And if we want to continue to attract and maintain excellence, we have to have equitable salary offerings.
I had one more thing, and Melissa and I talked about that today, is our educational assistants, probably some of our lowest paid employees, but are also working with some of our most challenging students all day long. So that's certainly something that Eric and I and the administrative team are quite aware of.
Yeah. They're angels, as far as I'm concerned.
All right,
Thank you for bringing that up, Melissa.
there's a motion second. There's no further discussion, let's vote. Motion carries 7-0. Next, future agendas, anybody want anything changed?
I do have one on our Facilities and Finance Committee. Again, we'd like to meet with that committee to start putting that spreadsheet and get those priorities set. Does either, it's a fairly short turnaround time, kind of gets a meeting in before school starts. Would either next Tuesday at 5 p.m. or next Thursday at 5 p.m. work for that group? Tuesday the 19th or Thursday the 21st?
Tuesday I can't do, but Thursday I could.
Thursday you could? Mitch?
When's the Packer game?
Thursday, that's,
No, it's,
I'm not.
we're actually going to one of them. It's not because I want to stay at home and watch it on TV.
So would you be able Tuesday or Thursday?
The 20?
The 19th or the 21st?
Hmm?
The 19th or the 21st?
Okay, I think I think I can do either one of those.
Either one? Okay. And we've got conflicts with both Seth and Mitch. I'll tell you what, I'll look at another date and see if I'll send something out to the three of you so we can make sure all of you are there.
What committee is that?
That's Facilities and Finance Committee.
All right. Nothing
else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion, is there a second? There's a second, let's vote. It's on up there, so. Motion carries 7-0 to adjourn.